Now that we have defined the notion of task, let's look at some common task dimensions that are used to differentiate between task types. We consider the difference between target and pedagogic tasks, one-way and two-way tasks, open and closed tasks, divergent and convergent tasks, focused and unfocused tasks, and finally, input-based versus output-based tasks. Michael Long makes an important distinction between what he calls target tasks and pedagogic tasks. Target tasks are the tasks that people do in everyday life, for example, when they are at work, when they are at school, or when they play. For example, as part of their job, people might need to carry out tasks such as filling out a form, writing an email, or reading an executive summary. Students often need to do tasks such as borrowing books from the library, writing essays, and listening to lectures. Tasks in which children might engage include building Lego castles, doing a puzzle, and so on. Pedagogic tasks, on the other hand, are simple versions of target tasks that language learners can work on in language classes. The goal of pedagogic tasks is to prepare learners for future target task performance in real-life settings. As Michael Long explains, pedagogic tasks often constitute a subtask of the target task. For example, a simple subtask associated with filling out a form might involve completing the first section of the form. This usually requires people to provide information about their personal data, including their name, address, telephone number, email address, and so on. A second, more complex pedagogic task might focus on sections about educational qualifications or previous work experience. At times, the distinction between target tasks and pedagogic tasks might be blurred. We can ask our students to carry out real-life target tasks with a pedagogical purpose in mind. For example, in second language settings, students can carry out tasks in their everyday context, like asking for directions in the street or ordering a coffee in a cafe. In foreign language settings, students could write an email to another student who is also a user of the language, for instance, as part of an international school collaboration project. We can also distinguish tasks based on whether one or more students are responsible for the flow of information. In one-way tasks, one participant has all the information to be conveyed. As a result, this participant is largely responsible for successful task completion. He or she does most of the talking or writing, although the other participants or participant can indicate whether they can follow or comprehend the speaker or writer. A one-way task, for example, could involve one participant giving directions to the other participant about where to place pictures of various pieces of furniture in a drawing of a room. This task would be inspired by the real-life scenario when moving company workers are directed by people where to put furniture in a new home. In two-way tasks, all the participants need to take part in the task so that it can be completed successfully. A well-known example of a two-way task is the so-called spot the difference task. In a spot the difference task, learners are given similar pictures which only differ in some details. For example, these two pictures, taken from Alison Mackey's work, depict two alien scenes which differ in some small details. The learner's task is to identify the differences between the two pictures without showing each other the pictures themselves. Often the task instructions tell participants how many differences they need to find. A third distinction concerns whether tasks are open or closed. In open tasks, there is no predetermined outcome that participants need to achieve. In closed tasks, on the other hand, participants need to reach a given solution. There is a predetermined, correct answer. The spot the different task is a closed task because there is a given set of differences that participants need to identify. A story sequencing task, in which participants need to put events in the correct order, also constitutes a closed task if there is only one logical solution. On the other hand, if participants are free to come up with any story using a different and unrelated set of pictures, the task could be categorized as open, because there would be no one predetermined correct solution. A related distinction is whether tasks are convergent versus divergent. In convergent tasks, participants are required to reach an agreement regarding the task outcome. In divergent tasks, on the other hand, participants do not need to agree about the task solution. Examples of convergent tasks include decision-making tasks, where, for example, participants need to decide how to allocate funding to competing community projects. Here's a task sheet that I used in one of my research projects. Frequently used divergent tasks include activities when learners discuss the pros and cons of an issue. For example, participants might be asked to discuss what might be the best way to decrease air pollution in a city or to make a society more fair. The non-linguistic outcome could be a list of the suggestions that emerged in the discussions. The terms focused and unfocused tasks were coined by Rod Ellis, and they denote whether or not a task is designed to elicit a specific linguistic feature. Unfocused tasks do not have a predetermined language focus, whereas focused tasks are constructed to induce the use of particular linguistic constructions. For example, we can categorize the spot the difference task with aliens as a focused task. Learners are likely to ask each other questions when they're trying to identify the differences between the two pictures. In fact, this task was designed to elicit questions. The decision-making task, where participants need to decide how to allocate funding to competing community projects, is less focused in the sense that they will probably rely on a wider variety of linguistic features when they're negotiating their decisions. Finally, a distinction particularly relevant to this MOOC is the difference between input-based versus output-based tasks. As Rod Ellis explains, the main difference between these two task types lies in whether learners are required to produce the language while they're carrying out the task. Output-based tasks require language learners to produce the language. In other words, they need to engage in either speaking or writing. The majority of the examples I gave so far constituted examples of output-based tasks. This reflects the fact that most of the literature on task-based language teaching and learning has so far focused on oral and written tasks. Input-based tasks, on the other hand, do not require production. Learners are expected to primarily engage in listening and reading during task work. Importantly, this does not mean that they cannot generate output. This is not prescribed in output-based tasks. Learners can, if they wish, also speak and/or write during input-based tasks. But eliciting production is not the primary purpose of the task. Examples of input-based tasks include listening to an airport announcement and reading for a project. The focus of this MOOC is reading tasks. In other words, we'll be primarily focusing on the use and design of a group of input-based tasks.